Members, when I invite you to speak, please wait until there is a microphone in front of you before speaking, as microphones are needed for the hearing loop and for the audio recording. Please use the antibacterial wipes if you do touch the microphones. Members, voting will be done on a show of hands in line with the Constitution. I will ask for a show of hands for, then against, recommendations, and then for abstaining. Given the size of the room and the numbers of us present, can I please ask that you put your hand up clearly, high in the air, so that it can be easily seen by all, and leave it up until I ask you to lower it. The normal rules of debate apply. No member should speak for longer than 5 minutes, and can I please ask you not to repeat anything previously said. All those indicating to speak will be given an opportunity to speak once. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. I have received apologies in the office from Councillor Carter, Dray, Lumley, Milne. Are there any more apologies? Councillor Wilkinson. Thank you. Councillor Myers. Thank you. That's it, thank you. Agenda item 2. Are there any declarations of interest, members? Councillor Foster. Could you hold on a minute, please, Councillor Foster? We'll just get a microphone to you.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to declare non-pecuniary interest as a member of 2 organisations that were recipients of government COVID grants via RDC.
Thank you. Councillor Foster, please could you also give the names of the organisations? Marcus?
Rochford Bowling Club and the Hockley and Hawkwell Day Centre. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Councillor Sperrin.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, a non-pecuniary interest. I'm involved with Raleigh Conservative Club, and they have also received benefit from the COVID grants. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Sperrin. Okay, thank you. Agenda item 3, medium term. Oh, sorry, I didn't. One moment, please, Councillor Hoy.
Sorry, you should never assume anything, should you? But I had assumed that the general council tax dispensation would have applied to this, but if not, I'd need to declare an interest as well that the company I own and work for received a grant of £10,000 through the COVID recovery.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Okay, so I'm being advised that...
Thank you, Chairman. Members, you do have a general dispensation, but for transparency reasons, if you wish to declare, you may say so.
Thank you, Angela. Okay, agenda item 3, medium-term financial strategy, 2022 to 23 to 2026 to 27. The Leader of the Council, Councillor Wootton, will introduce the Council's budget, and we will then invite Portfolio Holder for Financial Services, Councillor Simon Smith, to present the report. Councillor Wootton.
vital that we have a robust and sustainable financial plan for our residents and businesses across the district. Quite apart from our legal obligations, it is our collective responsibility as all councils across this room, not just the Conservative administration, to ensure we represent our residents in a fiscally responsible manner and that we recognise the financial challenges we, in common with other authorities, face. Before I hand over to Councillor Simon Smith, Portfolio Holder for Finance, to present the report in more detail, I would just like to say a few words. As we emerge after 2 years from the COVID-19 pandemic, it feels right to reflect on how the Council has performed in these challenging times and to consider how we will continue supporting communities as we recover towards a healthier, sustainable financial future. I am committed to ensure that the Council continues to deliver high-quality services which support residents, communities and businesses in our district to thrive. Our budget plans are an important part of making sure we achieve this ambition. The Council is committed not only to making the district as prosperous as possible and a desirable place in which to live, but also to attract visitors to share in the rich heritage this area has to offer. As custodians and placemakers of the district, over the next municipal year, this council will be exploring various ways to further the opportunity to support regeneration, which will be achieved in part through the delivery of a new local plan, which will give priority to infrastructure being a prerequisite to the delivery of new homes built in the right place in our district. We have a policy to give priority to development on brownfield sites first, thus doing our best to protect the green belt. This approach will assist in meeting housing provision targets and to ensure that current and future generations are able to access high-quality, sustainable homes and help stimulate the local economy and employment opportunities for our residents. This council has started this journey with its own asset delivery programme and will assist in enhancing employment and residential space within our 2 main towns. If the council can promote opportunities for regeneration where the commercial market may not bring forward proposals independently, then we will be prepared to intervene. This council will look to bring forward proposals within the next financial year that will be able to deliver on this ambition through a programme of investment to make a place-based difference to the lives of all residents and businesses within the Rochford district. Our business plan sets out the high-level priorities that as a council we will work towards over the medium term, which are being financially sustainable. We are continuing our transformation journey through being a modern, accessible and financially sustainable council. Early intervention. We are working with partners through early intervention, facilitating safe, healthy and active communities. Maximising our assets. We are playing our part to develop a thriving economy, enhancing skills and employment opportunities and maximising use of the council's own assets. And finally, enabling communities. We're working with communities to protect, enhance and promote our district. Despite the challenges faced over the last year or two, we have continued to deliver excellent services to our residents. Some key achievements include supporting businesses. Over the pandemic period, we have distributed well over £30 million of COVID-19 grants to businesses in the district and awarded nearly £4 million in additional reliefs to ratepayers. We launched the Reopening High Street Safely and Welcome Back initiatives to support the safe reopening of high streets following the pandemic. Supporting residents through early intervention. Between April and December 2021, 135 new affordable housing units were delivered on strategic sites across the district. The council supported 47 residents to be able to live more independently at home and removed 97 housing hazards, resulting in an estimated saving of over £500,000 to the NHS and wider society. The Housing Options Service supported over 3,000 households to meet their needs through services ranging from advice to provision of emergency accommodation. The council paid out over £250,000 in test and trace support payments to low-income residents and £88,000 in rent assistance. Supporting the health and well-being of residents. With the council's support, Fusion Lifestyle reopened both at Clements Hall Leisure Centre and Rayleigh Leisure Centre in a COVID-19 secure phased approach, with a total participation of nearly 250,000 people between April and December 2021 visiting the places. The Council facilitated events including 68 health walks in partnership with Walking for Health and the Ramblers, with over 1,500 participants. Supporting communities, we achieved 50% match funding to invest £162,000 for investment in new play facilities and recreation grounds across the district. £10,000 of grants were awarded to voluntary groups to enable them to deliver initiatives that support the joint Rochford and Castle Point health and wellbeing strategy. We launched a virtual tour of the Rayleigh Windmill, which retained its Visit England Quality Assured Visitor Attraction accreditation. Chairman and colleagues, the list is endless and goes beyond those long-established services we deal with as a council day in and day out, such as development control, waste collection, open space maintenance, street cleaning, leisure services, business support, housing, community support, car parking management, to name just but a few. The work started in 2021, which culminated in January this year with an agreement to work in partnership with Brentwood Borough Council in order to deliver services through a shared officer team, and is creative and will over time deliver significant benefits, and not just financial. And I do want to emphasise that that happened in a very, very short period of time to come to a very successful outcome. As a stakeholder in the South Essex Acela partnership, we are making a significant and very positive impact directly and indirectly on the lives of our residents. Members, I do want us to give greater focus on the work and actions this council is doing to adapt to the effects of climate change and our commitment to be carbon neutral by 2030. And I will be asking over the next few months for us to commission a report to set out exactly what we are doing, because I believe we are actually doing a lot. What we are failing to do is to communicate that to our residents. I want to lead a council which is creative and innovative, a council with opportunity, a council with vision and ambition, all in the interests of the communities we serve. The evidence is already there and history speaks for itself. The work the council is able to achieve is underpinned by sound strategic financial planning and robust financial management, which our administration will continue over the course of the next financial year and beyond. I will, if I may, Madam Chairman, now hand over to the portfolio holder for Financial Services, Councillor Simon Smith, to outline the 2022-23 budget proposals in more detail. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wotton. Councillor Simon Smith.
Members, with the Chairman's permission, I'll speak from over here so that you can see me face rather than my back. I've got, unfortunately, quite a few words. Members, I'm proud to present our administration's medium-term financial strategy to you tonight, or in layman's language, our budget. The detail being in the 143 pages that are in the report. As the leader has outlined, the past 12 months have continued to be extremely challenging, but nevertheless rewarding in council achievements. I would like to thank the councillors and officers who have worked hard to present a balanced budget for your approval, as well as working tirelessly to support residents and businesses throughout the last year. Through a combination of prudent financial management and additional one-off support from the government, we are projecting to stay within budget this financial year. This is a significant achievement in the current climate. The council also continues to maintain an unqualified set of financial accounts and a value for money opinion from our external auditors, which have recently been signed off for the 2021 financial year. Looking forward, members will be aware that the council is legally obliged to set a balanced budget each year, which contains our service expenditure from our available funding. The financial pressures arising from the pandemic and the continued uncertainty around future funding levels means that this is an ongoing challenge. Our medium-term projections anticipate a gap of at least £500,000 by the end of this medium-term financial strategy period, and there are significant risks that could add to this gap. In that context, we are putting forward a responsible, sustainable budget that will help our economy to recover and will protect and support our residents while ensuring essential services continue to be delivered. The pressures on our budget in 22-23 total nearly £900,000. The Council has worked hard to identify cost reductions, efficiency savings and additional income to offset these pressures, leaving a gap of just £236,000. Which brings me to council tax. At this time of financial pressure for residents, we've carried out a comprehensive exercise to identify those efficiencies and cost reductions across all of our service areas, but ensuring that the necessary levels of expenditure are maintained for the quality of services that we expect to be delivered to our residents. Therefore, I propose to announce effectively what I did last year, that the council tax will rise by less than 10 pence a week. That's just around £5 for a whole year, equal to 2.06%, and those figures being for a Band D property. It's only because the council manages its finances well under a Conservative administration that we can continue to deliver our services and support our residents so effectively. We must take nothing for granted, but let's remind ourselves that as a council that we've made consistently good decisions to run a balanced budget, and that we are a council that has no debt to service its day-to-day operation. Last week, Council agreed a new council tax support scheme. It was a new scheme, but it was one that guaranteed that no resident would be worse off. However, I do know that from time to time, circumstances present themselves to families and individuals that are very challenging. For that, we have a hardship fund. Given the turmoil of recent times and in anticipation of future adverse trends, we've increased the value of this available fund to £15,000, an important safety net for our residents. 12 months ago, we increased car parking charges for the first time in many years. Behind the scenes, we felt that going forward, that it would be better to have small rises each year to help keep up with inflation. And that's what we had intended to be announcing this year. High streets and commuting have still not fully recovered, and residents' pockets have been hit by inflation, and particularly higher fuel costs. We can't, as a caring council, be insensitive to this. We must support where we can. So, because of our good and prudent management of the council finances, we're in a position to announce that we are not doing something. We are not going to increase car parking charges. Figuratively speaking, they're going to be parked for consideration again in 12 months' time. It's not often that no news is good news, but it is this time. Car parking charges are frozen. Last year, we announced a town centre regeneration fund of £50,000 to fund public space improvements to attract visitors back to our town centres. This fund, not properly accessed in 21-22, will be rolled over into 22-23. Believe that we must do what we can and continue to do what we can to support regeneration in our town centres after the COVID pandemic. And this couldn't be better timing. I look forward to hearing about some of the great projects over the coming year. Similarly, we backed the importance of our community safety fund, and this year we will be rolling this forward into 22-23, again topped up to a level of £100,000 to help safety measures, investment in safety measures across the district. The responses we received in our recent budget survey showed that community safety continues to be an area that residents feel is particularly important to them. Our residents spoke, we listened, and we're delivering. This year is the 70th celebration of Her Majesty the Queen's accession to the throne, her Platinum Jubilee. In May, and at various stages throughout the year, there will be celebrations. It only seems right that we as a council support our residents joining in celebrations. The 2021 budget survey also highlighted the value residents place on their local communities and events that bring communities closer together. I'm pleased to announce that with a modest £10,000, I'm able to present to you a Platinum Purse, a fund that will be made available from our reserves after our careful management of finances. This will help to ensure that all residents can have an opportunity to join in celebrations for the Platinum Jubilee in some form with our Platinum Purse. Councillor Mike Webb has just this evening passed me a few more details that have just been worked out. Grants of up to £500 will be made available to applicants. They'll be looking to support a wide range of events across the district, including those organised by local church groups, Cubs, Scouts, and of course street parties. Grants could be used for things like food, drink, equipment, bunting, small memorabilia to be given out to those attending. We don't propose to have a complex application process, but we will be asking applicants to use the government's Platinum Jubilee website to find out more about how to manage their events through temporary road closures, raising money for charity, and to reference this on their application forms. Applications will be agreed by Councillor Webb and the portfolio holder for communities with officer support. And as part of the application process, we'll be asking for some feedback, pictures and short paragraphs from organisations that ran events to evidence how the support has helped them to enjoy their day. Moving on to the proposed capital programme. 3 years ago, we launched our package of playground refurbishments across the district. At least one playground in every ward was to have a refurbishment. It's true to say that the work did not roll through at the desired rate, but there has been a global pandemic that has caused challenges to every aspect of everybody's life, and that includes playground refurbishments. I'm pleased to announce this year that £300,000 will be allocated during 22-23, and that is just the start. We have in our long-term planning an additional £50,000 for each of the included budgeting years tonight. But what's more, the scale of our allocation and commitment stands us in good stead for making further applications for matched funded grants and money from other sources. We've done this in the past and we shall do it again. We've been successful in the past and I'm sure we will be successful again. It's hard to predict funding applications that are in the control of others, but over the next 3 years, investment could end up being as high as £750,000. £750,000. And we must not lose sight of the additional playgrounds that have been delivered within some of the larger housing schemes, like Bunwood Hall and West Rayleigh. What fantastic facilities are coming for our younger residents. Provision of over £2 million has been made within the proposed capital programme for a significant investment in vehicles to support the delivery of a new waste contract in 22-23, to ensure these services can be delivered in a modern and efficient way, supporting the Council's wider business plans. The 22-23 Capital and Treasury Management Strategy has been considered by the Review Committee and is recommended to full Council for approval tonight. There are one or two small updates to the figures presented to reflect the final capital programme proposals. The experiences of the past 2 years have highlighted the importance of holding reasonable levels of reserves to support us through times of unexpected cost pressures. The Council's total level of earmarked reserves remains at a level comparable to similar local authorities and are not considered to be excessive, particularly given the financial climate of uncertainty that is faced over the medium term. It is proposed that the 22-23 new homes bonus grant payment, as well as other one-off grants, are transferred to our investment reserve to fund future capital investment within the district. The council continues to maintain a general fund balance of at least £1 million, or 10% of its net revenue budget, which is prudent to maintain as a contingency for emergencies. In support of the leader's earlier comments, I reiterate that this council looks forward to bringing forward proposals within this next financial year that will be able to deliver on our ambition of a programme of invest again within the district. Tonight's budget does not set out the details or provide individual business cases, but it does support the vision and ambition this council has to make a difference to the lives of our residents and businesses in this place of our Rochford district. I've outlined challenges for the next year, but I have also outlined lots of exciting projects and actions that this council is taking to serve its residents. I'm convinced that we remain in a strong position to meet these challenges head on, and our administration will continue to advocate for financial responsibility to ensure the sustainability of the council over the longer term. I therefore commend the medium-term financial strategy to the council and propose the recommendations set out at section 17 of the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Do you have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Wotton. Members, we have 13 recommendations moved by Councillor Smith. If you have any questions... Oh, sorry. Councillor Mason? Councillor Mrs Mason?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Rochford District residents decided not to hold an alternative budget this year to save officer time in the difficult circumstances that we have all experienced. We are concerned with the constant increases that this council has put forward, with the perceived reductions in services and the apparent failure to hear concerns expressed by residents. We are also aware of the increasing costs, pressure to finances that our residents face with mortgage increases, rent increases, fuel and food costs, amongst other things. Despite the lengthy speeches, I feel that this budget is inappropriate and unfortunately will not be able to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Mason. Councillor Wilkinson.
Madam Chairman, thank you. Setting the Council's annual budget is a vitally important and legally required part of the work of the finance team in the Council, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Section 151 officer and her staff, along with the portfolio holder for finance, for the continued work that they provide in this area of business. In preparation for this evening's budget meeting, and on the assumption that there will be a move to raise council tax again this year, the independent group met with the Section 151 officer to look at alternatives to raising council tax. I'm sure it is not lost on anyone in the room just how much those most vulnerable across our community are going to be suffering in the continued months. It's been mentioned a couple of times tonight, with a massive increase in energy prices planned for later in the spring. I cannot, and I will not, support any move to blindly raise taxes when those most vulnerable are sitting at home making decisions about whether to put the heating on or pay their taxes. Equally, we have a statutory and a moral duty to keep our council services working for the residents that we serve. We become completely ineffective if we can't provide the services we were set up to provide. And whilst the rise in prices are affecting our residents, it's affecting the council too. So our plan was never to just press the pause button on council tax. but to find a viable alternative that protected the public and the council alike. Councillor Lawman and I came up with a plan which would achieve just that, based on the advice from the Section 151 officer, which would have protected the council revenue income and protected those most vulnerable in the district. A few days after presenting this plan to the administration for consideration, we were informed that in fact we could not do what we wanted to do for a variety of reasons, and were provided with further advice. Sadly, this rendered our idea unworkable, so we have withdrawn it and is no longer on the table. That said, I know that it did have some support from within the administration, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Conservative administration for at least considering our proposals and the positive comments that we received regarding them. So that leaves us back at square one again. I fully sympathise with any member who cannot support council tax rises this year. However, I would say two things. The revenue income of the council needs to be protected also. We have seen from the reports presented by the Section 151 officer that even after a 2.06% rise, our residual gap remains close to £500,000. The rise proposed this year will generate approximately £162,000. The second thing is, if you recognise the above statement as being true, then an alternative solution has to be presented to council for us to consider covering that £162,000 and bring that income from elsewhere. We've tried and we've failed. In light of this, and in absence of any alternative proposal, I will be offering my support for the proposals before us tonight, as I believe this is the only plan which can deliver what the council needs to protect those services of the residents of this district, whilst also providing capital investment into our district through high street investments and community safety grant funds. Madam Chairman, if I may be allowed one further minute, I have two questions relating to the report which I have already forwarded to the leader, and I would be grateful if either the portfolio holder for finance or the Section 151 officer could answer them for me. At the end of the MTFS strategy report presented to members in Appendix 1, there is a list of each portfolio and associated costs for each department. The first question is, under human resources, there is an attendance bonus of £16,900. Now, I'm sure this is not simply a bonus for staff attending work, so I wonder if he could explain what that is. Second question is, under the section Office Accommodation Rayleigh, there is a section called Repairs, Maintenance and Utilities. This has risen from £10,000 in 21 to 22 to £19,450 in 22 to 23. Whilst I do understand that a certain amount of ongoing work needs to be done to the civic suite to stop it from falling apart, why are we spending the best part of £20,000 on buildings which will either be sold or potentially demolished in the next few years? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. I believe Naomi Campbell. No, Lucas. Oh, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson, and thank you for your due diligence in going through all 143 pages and picking out a couple of good questions. In terms of your question with regard to Appendix 1, there are non-contractual benefits. There are staff awards, and there is an attendance award scheme in place. And I'll just read the extract from you, which is what has been funding. And the additional funding is required to reflect lower sickness levels, as many people have worked at home during COVID-19. So the element from the scheme is, if you attend 100% attendance during the 6-month period, you will receive an attendance award of £50, or alternatively, you may opt for half a day's additional paid leave, with the attendance period being 1st of April to 30th September and 1st of October to 31st of March. So that is what that allowance is for. With regard to the buildings question, we have updated those budgets across the board this year. The council has been regularly struggling to meet the costs of doing repairs and maintenance, and there has had to be a small draw on reserves to fund these. One, we fully accept the point that we're trying to avoid these costs in future through the asset delivery programme. We do have to continue to keep our public buildings, open or closed, safe and secure in the meantime, until a firm decision is made by the council at the relevant stop-go point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Newport.
Thank you, Chairman. I didn't really prepare a speech because we've heard lots of wonderful things from the portfolio holder. One of the things that we heard about was I think it was a £10,000 fund for Eat, Drink and Be Merry. I was quite shocked in recent weeks to receive an email from the NHS, which was the fact that RDC wished to charge them to park the breast screening unit in one of the car parks around £3,000 for 6 months. So what I would like to propose to the leader is that in the schedule of fees, that fee, we basically make the NHS breast screening unit exempt from any fees for parking. I think, listening to the speeches tonight, everything we heard about was about caring, looking after our residents. I think the ladies in our community who would be disproportionately affected by this terrible cancer should be afforded the modest cost of parking for the unit. So I would like the leader to commit to that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newport. Councillor Wootton, are you able to answer that this evening?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have to confess that I feel marginally uncomfortable about the charges that are levied. This does actually get covered in a separate report that comes out on our fees and charges. What I will commit to Councillor Newport to do is to review it. I don't particularly want to make a firm decision tonight without considering the various angles, but I think he makes a fair point. These things always become very we always want to do the right thing in terms of our residents, and I will commit to Councillor Newport that we will review that and give it urgent consideration. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. Councillor Hoy, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. Ooh, very loud there. As always, I've read the budget. I'd like to thank Naomi Lucas for all the hard work she puts in. I might not necessarily agree with the budget, but I understand the work that goes into it. I'd also like to thank Naomi for responding to my questions today, which just helped me clear up a few points I wanted to say tonight. I will come to Councillor Newport's suggestions at the end. As I'm sure you're aware, I probably have something I'd like to say on this as well. But I'd like to start with the budget. I sat through Essex's budget last week or the week before, and I felt that budget had a vision to it. I might not agree with it, I voted against it, but it had a vision. It had the leader's vision for what he wanted to do, and the Conservative Party wanted to do in Essex. I agree with some of it, but not enough of it. I just feel this lacks that overarching vision for the district. And I think that's partly because our business plan is still a pre-COVID business plan. I know it's 2020, but it's still not taken account of what has changed. And I think we desperately need to update the business plan. When we did the business plan, we were told it's a live document. It's still the same document as it was in 2020 when it was revised. And I think we really need to do that and to keep it live and to keep it moving forward. And I hope that's taken in the way it's meant. It's not meant as a massive criticism, just we'd like to do that. The thing I'm quite angry about this. I thank Councillor Wootton for actually mentioning climate, and he mentioned climate change. I would rather it was climate breakdown. If you do a word search in this budget, climate is mentioned once, and that's about the financial climate. It's not about our climate. We are supposed to be aiming for carbon neutrality within the council by 2030, but it is just not mentioned here at all. And there's no budget, there's no reserves in relation to it. I understand the working group is meeting. I have no idea is what is happening. I find it, I cannot find the words to understand why you haven't put climate into this budget or into the MTFS. You really need to work harder on this as the administration. It's not good enough just to have the words. You need to do it. And I know there's members in the Conservative Party. I know our chairman is very, very hot on this. I know Councillor Joe McPherson is very hot on this. And I'm sure others are as well. And I just wish your voices could be heard more within the administration, because I think this is something we are missing. We're missing it badly. And I would like to see that. And I hope, Councillor Wootton, as he suggested, in the next few months, this will come forward. I will be asking questions at the next council meeting on it, because I know there are things we should have done, and I do not believe they have yet been done. I'll move on from climate now. I've mentioned about the budget. I won't go into detail. I believe, along with Councillor Mrs Mason, that it's very hard for our residents at the moment, and I'm just going to propose one amendment to the budget, which is to fund the budget gap of £162,000 from reserves. Just for some information, and I know what's going to be said to me, that we need reserves. Reserves are supposedly 10% of our expected spend, which is £1 million, or 1,045,000, I think it is. That's 10%. Our reserves are actually 1.4 million. They're 14%. I think that is very high. I don't think we need to have 14% reserves. If you take the £162,000 away from the 1.4 million, it comes to 1.3 million. That's still 12.5% of our expected spend. It's still above the minimum, and I think this is perfectly affordable for this council. I think this year we should help our residents by delaying as long as possible any rise that has to be put in. We could put a rise in next year if it is desperately needed. So that's that amendment. I would just like to quickly touch on what Councillor Newport said. I may find this difficult, but I do know that Diane had queried this before. She had queried it at a meeting after she had been diagnosed. For those who don't know, Diane was diagnosed with breast cancer in a portable unit in a car park.
Councillor Hoy, I'm really sorry you are running out of time.
I would very much like Councillor Wootton to review this properly and to take that charge away. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wootton, would you like to come back on that?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think I've already provided a comprehensive answer in respect of the breast screening unit. It is an emotive subject. It's a subject that I understand, but I've given a promise already, so I won't go over that point again. In terms of the vision of this administration, I find it absolutely amazing. Because what have we done over the last year? We have clearly cemented our position with ACELA, which is about working with South Essex local authorities. We've established a fantastic opportunity working with Brentwood Council, all the opportunities that provides by working collaboratively with...
Councillor Mr Mason?
I believe that you said we could only have one speech, and you're allowing another one for the Leader of the Council, so I've got no objection to that.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Mason. Councillor Wootton is responding to Councillor Hoy's question. Please continue, Councillor Wootton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Exactly that. I am responding to the questions. In terms of the vision that was set out, there were a number of items within the programme set forward under the Brentwood Partnership which provide vision for this authority. The portfolio holder for finance spoke about playgrounds, opportunities for our really young people. No cuts in service. I heard that mentioned earlier, talking about cuts in service. Where are the cuts in service? Quite the reverse. Actually, we're expanding services. £100,000 being spent on community safety, £15,000 being spent on Hardship Fund, £10,000 to celebrate Her Majesty the Queen. I don't know where this lacks vision. I really don't, Madam Chairman. And I just think, dare I say, it is a political speech rather than a reality speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. Before we move on, Councillor Hoy, you proposed an amendment. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Mrs Mason? We are now speaking to the amendment. Councillor Hoy, are you able to repeat the amendment, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'll just keep to the amendment. That the budget gap of £162,000, for which the precept is increasing by 2.06% for, is funded by a transfer from reserves of £162,000.
I'm ever sorry, we
Did
got
that make
interrupted
sense? It did
there.
in my head. That instead of increasing the precept by 2.06%, the funding gap of £162,000 is funded by a transfer out of general reserves.
Naomi, have you got all that information?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear? Yeah. Thank you. I think I understand the amendment as Councillor Hoy sets out, which is to keep council tax at the current levels rather than raise them by the proposed amount, and instead to fund that from general balances. Before members consider that further, I'd just like to point out that in that scenario, the gap would still, the funding gap would still exist in future years. It would just be deferring the gap for another year. So we could fund it from one-off means for this financial year, but it would just add to the gap from next year onwards. So that £162,000 gap would still exist. So it doesn't actually solve the long-term problem. It would just defer it for another year. Yeah, sorry, I'm not meaning to. I just wanted members to be clear on the impact. Just before you, I'm not advocating one way or the other. I just wanted to be clear that it was an ongoing. It would create an ongoing gap, not that it wouldn't fix it permanently.
Thank you, Naomi. I will now take questions from the floor. Councillor Simon Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't look to support this amendment. This is effectively kicking a problem down the road. We have presented to members tonight a balanced, sustainable budget that considers our needs to deliver services and our ability to deliver services, are not cutting services, and I'm not able to take what I consider to be a slightly backward-looking step in administering the council finances by simply dealing with a budget gap by spending reserves.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Mrs Mason.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, it is deferring it, but we are in exceptional times. And in exceptional times, you don't normally make anything other than prudent moves. As Councillor Hoy has pointed out, our reserves are at 14%, when the recommended minimum is 10%. Doing this move, which not only would help every resident in the district, every single person, including those that are struggling at the moment, and those are likely to struggle more when if this original budget is passed, we would still have reserves of 12.5%. It's not a difficult sum to do. There's nothing wrong sometimes with postponing something when you're helping people. And I do hope that this is not a political statement. This is to help our residents. And I hope that the administration will take that in the manner that it is meant. Thank you.
Councillor FD.
Thank you. I agree with the sentiment of not raising the council tax, but again, this seems to be brought up every year. I can't remember last year, but I remember the last couple of years before that, this was brought up of funding the budget gap from reserves, and we've got money to spend from reserves. We've got waste vehicles to buy. We've got unknown factors that could come into this, and I can't support this amendment. I'm very sorry. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor FD. Are there any more questions? Okay, so if we'd like to take this to the vote then, those in favour of the amendment. Oh yes, of course, sorry, Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. I will be brief. I'll just keep to one comment. I think it was just Councillor F. who spoke. I couldn't quite see that far. Yes, it does come up every year. Our reserves go up every year as well. That suggests to me that we don't really need to do the increase every year. Thank you.
Without no further ado, we'll go for the vote then. Those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hand. We'll just finish the vote first. Have you got those numbers first, Sonia? Please lower your hand. Those against? Thank you. You can lower your hands. And those abstaining, please. Thank you. Members, that amendment was 9 for the amendment, 23 against, and 1 abstention. Is that the right number? Wilkinson abstained. So that was 9 for, 22 against, and 1 abstention. If you could raise your hand for those that wanted recorded votes, please.
And I'm sorry, thank you. My maths might not be brilliant, but 9 and 22 is 31. 1 abstention is 32. 5 apologies is 37. I thought we had 38 members. I could be wrong. There could be someone else absent that I don't know
There's
about.
6 apologies.
6, thank you.
Thank you. They are recorded. We will now move on to the recommendations. Oh, apologies, Councillor Webb.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the portfolio holder for Finance, Councillor Simon Smith, for delivering another excellent and balanced budget. There's a couple of highlights that I'd just like to remind members of. The increase in the Hardship Fund, which is going up to £15,000, a welcome support to the most vulnerable families in our community. With frozen car parking charges this year, supporting local businesses and high streets, another welcome move, and thanks again to the portfolio holder for finance for that. In addition to that, we'll be seeing another £300,000 invested in our playgrounds, helping out our children and families. Again, a welcome addition. I would also like to thank the portfolio holder for agreeing to the Platinum Purse. As you know, this is a fantastic anniversary to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the Queen coming to the throne, and it gives us an opportunity to celebrate that within our communities. The district has a fantastic community spirit, and this grant will help to support our communities as they come together to celebrate this event. I look forward to the applications coming forward from various community groups, residents groups, Cubs and Scouts groups, to celebrate a unique event in the life of the district, and I'm thankful that our district will be able to support our communities in doing that. So once again, my support for this budget, and thank you to the portfolio holder for some excellent suggestions in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I was going to make that speech, but I just want to add something to it. It's a word of thanks to the officers on behalf of the two organisations I mentioned earlier for the rapid distribution of the COVID support grants. It's been really important and helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Councillor Smith. Okay. Are there any other people that wishing to speak? Okay, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be very brief because there's a lot of words been spoken tonight. Just to remind members that this is a good budget. I believe this to be a good budget, a considered budget, a budget that has had a lot of hard work gone into it. It advocates our financial responsibility to ensure the sustainability of the council, and there are many aspects to it that will allow our residents to benefit. And just one small point on the Platinum Purse that Councillor Newport didn't like too much. Can I remind Councillor Newport that it was only January where he was considering of floating an idea on Facebook of giving residents in Rayleigh a £50 gift card, which would literally have been giving away £1.5 million of the council's money. So a modest £10,000 to allow residents around the district.
Councillor Smith, please, if you just listen to the point of order.
Using this as a political point scoring exercise against me, and the fact of a £50 gift card, I think he's taken it out of context. I think I was merely pointing to another country where they did offer that. So
thank you. Your point of order is?
I simply described floating of an idea, Chairman. So without any further ado, I recommend this report. I recommend our budget to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I would like to ask the members now to vote. Those, first of all, I'll read out the recommendations as moved by Councillor Smith and seconded by Councillor Wootton. They're set out on paragraph 17.1 on pages 3.24 and 3.25 of the report. That the net revenue budget requirement for 2022-23 is set out at 9.710 million, as paragraph 720. Item 2, that the council programme for 2022-23 set out at Appendix 2 be approved, and the forecast for the years 2023-24 to 2026-27 be noted. That the Section 151 officer be authorised to adjust capital projects budgets in 2022-2023. Do you have a point of order, Councillor Mason?
Some of them are to be noted and some are to be voted on.
I will, if you bear with me, I will finish reading the recommendations and I will then explain. Thank you. The Section 151 officer be authorised to adjust capital project budgets in 2022 to 2023 after the 2021-22 accounts are closed and the amount of slippage and budget carried forward required are confirmed. That it be noted that the proposed council tax requirement for the council's own purposes, excluding parish and town councils and precepts for 2022-23 is 8.019 million as per paragraph 7.20. Item 5, that the 2022 to 23 Band D equivalent tax base for the purpose of determining the council tax charge is agreed as 32,707.6 properties. Item 6, that the increase in Rochford District Council tax of £4.95, that's 2.06% for 2022-23, is approved by recorded vote. That the schedule of fees and charges for 2022-23 is set out in Appendix 3 is approved. Item 8, that the target minimum general balance as at the 1st of April 2023 is set out at 1 million. Item 9, that the expected earmarked reserves position set out in Section 14 is noted. Item 10, that the statement on the robustness of the estimates and reserves at Section 14 is noted. Item 11, that the equality impact assessment as set out in Section 12 of this report is noted. Item 12, that the capital and treasury management strategy for 2022-23 as set out in Appendix 4, including the 2022-23 prudential indicators, is approved. Item 13, that the budget consultation report at Appendix 5 be noted. Members, the recommendations 4, 9, 10, 11 and 13 are for noting. Are these noted, members? Thank you. Point 5. Yes, thank you for that, Councillor FD. 32,707.6 properties. Thank you. Councillor Mrs Mason.
I think you said item 4. It's not. It's item 2. So if you're going to back them together, can you just clarify that? The ones for noting on my documents are 2, 10, 11 and 13. And I'm happy to accept...
No, there's 4 as well.
Oh,
I will
sorry,
add 2. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and 2.
Chairman, recommendation 2 is that the capital programme for 2022-23 set out in Appendix 2 be approved, and the forecast for the years 2023-24, why am I holding this? To 26-27 be noted, so that will be taken as a vote.
So item 2 will be taken as a vote. So we'll go back to the numbers that I originally read out, which are recommendations for 4, 9, 10, 11 and 13 are for noting. Members, is that noted? Thank you. Members, recommendation 6 relating to the proposed increase in council tax must be determined by a recorded vote. I would suggest that we take the recorded vote on this now. When Sonia calls out your name, can you please indicate whether you are wishing to vote for or against the motion, or if you wish to abstain? Sonia.
Councillor Mrs Butcher. Councillor Mrs Carter. Councillor Constable. Councillor Refty. Councillor Eaves. Councillor Foster. Councillor Mrs Gadsden. Councillor Mr Gooding. Councillor Mrs Gooding.
4.
Councillor Hazelwood. Councillor Hoy. Councillor Mrs Knight.
Against.
Councillor Mrs Mason. Councillor Merrick. Councillor Myers. Councillor James Newport. Councillor Mrs Newport. Councillor Mrs Pavlin. Councillor Mrs Rowe. Councillor Mrs Shaw. Councillor Mr Shaw. Councillor Smith. Councillor Sperring. Councillor Stanley. Councillor Steptoe. Councillor Ward. Councillor Webb. Councillor Mrs Weston. Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Williams. Councillor Wilson. Councillor Wotton.
Members, that was 23 for, 9 against and no abstentions. That vote is carried. Members, we're now left with recommendations 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8 and 12. Are you happy to vote on these all together? I will assume you are, unless you raise your hand. Okay, we'll take those separately. We'll start with 1, yeah? Okay. Recommendation 1. That the net revenue budget requirement for 2022-23 is set out at 9.710 million as per paragraph 720. Those in favour, please raise your hands. please lower your hands. Those against, please raise your hands. Thank you. Please lower your hands. Are there any abstentions? There are 23 for, 7 against and 2 abstentions. So that motion is carried. We will now move on to item 2, the capital programme for 22-23 set out in Appendix 2 be approved and the forecast for the years 2023-24 to 2026-27 be noted. Members, those that are for, please raise your hands. Thank you, members. You now lower your hand. Those members against, please raise your hands. And are there any abstentions? Thank you. 2. So that is 23 for, 7 against and 2 abstentions. That is carried. Thank you. We're now going on to the item 3, that the Section 151 officer be authorised to adjust capital project budgets in 2022-23 after the 2021-22 accounts are closed and the amounts of slippage and budget carry forward required are confirmed. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Please lower your hands. Those against, please raise your hands. Oh, it's unanimous. Thank you. So that's recommendation 4 is carried. Recommendation 5, that the 2022-23 Band D equivalent tax base for the purposes of determining the council tax charge is agreed at 32,707.6 properties. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. That is unanimous and carried. Item 7, that the schedule of fees and charges for 2022-23 set out in Appendix 3 is approved. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Those, please lower your hands. Those against, please raise your hands. And those abstentions, please raise your hands. Thank you, members. Please lower your hands. Members, that's 24 for, 1 against and 4 abstentions. That is carried. Item 8, that the target minimum general balance as at the 1st of April of 2023 is set at 1 million. Members, those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you, members. Please lower your hand. That is unanimous and carried. We are now on item 12, that the Capital and Treasury Management Strategy for 2022-23, as set out in Appendix 4, including the 2022-23 prudential indicators, is approved. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Please lower your hand. Those against, please raise your hands. And those abstaining, please raise your hands. Members, that's 22 for, 0 against and 8 abstentions. And that motion is carried. Councillor Ward. We need a microphone.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's just a matter of clarification. It's on item 2. That, I believe, was excluded from the noted because Councillor Mrs Mason noted that item, and she wanted it so it was going to be an approved item. Was that item noted at all? Because it was excluded from the original count.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. It was approved and noted.
Thank you.
In
Okay,
the
just wanted to
recommendation.
clarify that because it was excluded from the noted section. Thank you.
Thank you. That was approved. Okay. Item 4 on the agenda, setting the council tax 2022-23. Members, before I introduce this item, can I draw your attention to the fact that although there were some formatting issues with the committee report, these were minor ones, primarily affecting spacing between the words. The actual financials in the report are not affected. Councillor Smith, Portfolio Holder for Financial Services, will now introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. As outlined in the previous budget report, the pressures under which local government operate remain significant, and this authority continues to look closely at opportunities to make efficiency savings and generate new sources of revenue. This is not only in response to the removal of government grants, but is also to deal with significant cost increases arising from inflationary...
Councillor Smith, they can't hear you. Is your mic off?
I have no problem with that.
Battery's getting a bit low.
Do you want to go on stage?
Do you wish me to start again, Chairman?
Yes, please.
Right, okay. As outlined in the budget report in the previous item, the pressures under which the local government operates remain significant, and this authority continues to look closely at opportunities to make efficiency savings and to generate new sources of revenue. This is not only in response to the removal of government grants, but it is to deal with significant cost increases arising from inflationary and demographic pressures, as well as the impact of COVID-19. As a responsible council, we will continue to look at areas where costs can be reduced or income generated. However, in 22-23, there is a need to increase council tax by just under 2.1% to help fund the financial pressures that the district is facing. This equates to an increase of less than 10 pence per household per week on a Band D property. The proposal is to set Rochford District's council tax for a Band D property at £245.16 per year. The overall breakdown of the annual council tax for a Band D property would be Essex County Council £1,231.65. Essex County Council Social Care Levy £169.47. Essex County Fire and Rescue £75.33. Essex Police Fire and Crime Commissioner £218.52. The average of parish and town councils £53.84, and Rochford District Council £245.16. The average total council tax for a Band D property for 22-23 would be £1,993.97, an increase of £78.18. That equates to 4.1%. It needs to be remembered that Rochford District Council only keeps a small proportion of that total council tax that it collects across the district, with the majority going to Essex County Council, as well as the fire, police and parish councils. In conclusion, Chairman, although these remain difficult financial times, Rochford District Council remains committed to providing excellent services to our residents and partners. With this in mind, we will be doing all we can to deliver innovative and high quality services. Chairman, I commend the Rochford District Council's tax to members for approval as set out in the recommendations at paragraph 5 of the report. And does the monitoring officer wish to add anything at this point? No? Okay. I think I was just checking that you didn't need to re-mention formally those amendments to the report. Okay. Members, I move the recommendation as printed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Wootton? Are there any members that wish to speak? Councillor Wootton.
Madam Chairman, none of us in this room, I believe, came into politics to put up taxes and cause our residents more expenditure. The reality of the fact is that out of the 6 authorities, we are the lowest, apart from, I believe, the Essex Fire Service. It is £5 a year for a Band D property, a relatively modest increase, but the reality is that that represents 2%. The reality is inflation is running at something 5, 6, 7%, whichever indices you choose to believe, and rising. Sadly, this authority is not immune from rising costs. I do urge the fact that when we look at some of the authorities and the necessary expenditure, Essex County Council of the order of 4.5%, but a considerable levy in respect of adult social care, which we all accept is posing pressures on county councils, so that when you pull that out of the equation, their increases of the order of 1.99%, exactly the same as ours. But they are the largest authority and they have the largest sum of money, but I would suggest that £5 is very good value for money for the services this authority delivers. And I stress once again, a budget that has been put forward without cutting services. It's about vision, opportunity, and being an innovative and creative council. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. Are there any questions? Okay. Councillor Mrs Mason? Councillor Hoy.
I'll be brief. We keep hearing about Tempe. I'm sure most people in this room have heard of Jack Monroe. She lives in Southend, bootstrap cook. I'm sure most people are aware that she did struggle very much so with money and for cooking. If you look on her website, you'll find that she survived on meals which were costing 10 pence. 10 pence could be a meal for many people. I would wish people would stop saying it's only 10 pence. That's the difference between a child getting a meal or not getting a meal.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Councillor Mrs Mason?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think Councillor Hoy's taken almost the words out of my mouth. There isn't any only when it comes to families in hardship. Slightly off the subject, Madam Chairman, if you'll allow me, I'd like to apologise for misunderstanding the previous voting, but to facilitate a speedy resolution of the meeting, I would ask that the recommendations are taken separately, if that helps you. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Mason, there is only one recommendation and they're all set out and I'm sure you'll have already read it, so if it's okay with the members, I don't intend to read out every single point, A to J. So, are there, Councillor FD? Thank you. Any more? Councillor Mrs Gladstone.
Thank you. I'd like to start off, Chair, to thank Councillor Simon Smith and also Naomi and the team. I found this budget, the whole report, transparent, clear, easy to read and very informative. I feel the Conservative administration has sought through this budget and in its proactive policy in forming a partnership with Brentwood Council to maintain a high level of services and to our residents while dealing with growing budget pressures exacerbated by loss of income caused by COVID-19. Also against the background of a 3-year settlement, which, although fair, will not be resilient against unexpected increases in inflation. This Conservative administration has found extra money to ensure that no family is negatively affected in the 22-23 changes to housing benefit. In addition to doubling Council Hardship Fund, and with our government's £150 grant to residents, and only, when we say only, I don't dismiss the fact that 10 pence a week can make a big difference, but I feel that as an administration we've done everything we can. We need to remember that once you cut the budget or take the money from the reserves and you do not put up the council tax, unless I'm wrong, you've lost that money in perpetuity. So that means that when we then put our council tax up next year, we're always going to be that £162,000 behind, which is then creating a double deficit, which we would then have to carry. So whilst I do appreciate the concerns, and I share those concerns coming from a very poverty background, I do understand them, is that I feel that we can't lose sight of the fact that we have to protect the council from risks of going into debt, not providing services. So once again, I would really like to thank Niobe and her team and the Conservative administration, the members that have put this budget together, because I think it's fair, it's balanced, and it's done its utmost to serve our residents to the best of our potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gadsden. Are there any more questions? Councillor Stanley. Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to point out that the £150 for the government grant, as it says, will be paid back over 4 years. So it's not actually a grant, it's actually a loan. And as for the amount of money that we may or may not recover of this 160,000, might I remind the council that they had spent 1.4 million on projects in the past, of which money has not been returned to the kitty, and £7,000 spent on the toilets in Crown Hill, which hasn't been returned to the kitty either. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stanley. Councillor Smith, would you like to talk to your... Yes. Sum up.
Thank you, Chairman. After item 3, in this item, there are a considerable number of matters of fact. We can't really take issue with precepts that have been set by other authorities, despite the fact that we have to collect them. I do understand what Councillor Hoy says, in that it's perhaps an unfortunate term saying only 10 pence, but I will just remind members back to item 3, where we specifically mentioned the increasing the level of the hardship fund, which was specifically to deal with those unfortunate cases and unusual cases of hardship that our residents may find themselves in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Members, there's the one recommendation set out at paragraph 5.1 on pages 4.4 and 4.5 of the report. We will now move to the vote. Those in favour? Thank you, members. You may now lower your hands. Those against? Hold on a moment. A microphone's coming.
Sorry, unless J is taken separately, which I will vote against, you're making me vote against maths. I understand that most of it is mathematics, but J is council tax again, which I will vote against. You're making me vote against maths. It seems silly.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. I'll just ask Naomi Lucas to clarify.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to try and clarify, all the recommendations, all the different elements of the recommendation are interrelated, so they cannot really be taken separately, because one sort of begets the other. So yeah, you have to take them all en bloc.
So those against, please raise your hands. Those that are abstentions, please raise your hand. That's 23-4. Thank you, members. Please lower your hands. 23-4, none against, and 9 abstentions. And that is carried. Okay. Thank you, members. That is all the business for this evening. I will now close the meeting at 21:09. Thank you.
Rise.